So it's Friday, April 8th, and I bought the Corvette on March 22nd, so a little over a half month of owning the Stingray. And what I've done recently is I've painted some stuff. So this is my rear view mirror, and it wasn't looking so good, so I took it down and took it apart and painted it. But the paint, it's not really that great. It's a little bubbly, but so I might hit it with a little sandpaper and do that one over again. This is a little bracket that the Distributor cover sits on, and originally it was orange. I'm painting the inside black and the outside purple. This is the bolt that holds that down, and this is my water reservoir, not water but coolant reservoir cap, so for the overflow. So it was looking pretty old and dirty. I cleaned it up as best I could. And I'm gonna paint that as well. I'm gonna paint it purple. You might wonder why I'm painting things purple. I went to Superior Glass and Paint down in Caldwell, Idaho. Shout out to you guys. And had them mix me up a paint color. I'm trying to find a good color to paint the car eventually. I would love to do a super dark purple that is, from a distance you'd be like, is that black? And then, from different maybe viewpoints or whatever, you go, oh, nope, that's not black, that's purple. So, I don't like the fact that I can't switch my camera to turn around once I've started a video. Oh, should have thought of that before. But anyway, so I'll try to show you what I'm doing. Hopefully it gets in the view. I should take some more time on this, maybe sand it down a little, make it look nicer. But quite frankly, it's not like it's a main viewable thing in the engine compartment. The Distributor cover pretty much covers it up too. Oh, I don't want that. So, anywho, my water reservoir, the tank, it was, well, it's supposed to be see-through, so you can see when it's low or high or whatever, but it was not looking very great. So it had dark stains and whatnot, and just didn't work very well. Well, it wasn't see-through anymore anyway, so I went ahead and painted it too. So anyway, let me show you the car and what's going on there. So I watched this YouTube channel. The channel name is Problem Solver Garage, and this guy Tom, Canadian, for sure Canadian, he bought a 1969 Corvette with a lot of issues, but it's a beautiful car, and he's done all the restoration work on it to get it from, I guess it had not started in 22 years, and he shows everything he does to get it running and fix all the little issues. And it did have a lot of issues. And it seemed like whenever I would look up something to do with my vet, one of his videos would show up as one of the suggested ones. And so at first I just started watching his videos. And then of course I subscribed and watched every single one of them. And I noticed that a lot of things that he was showing I needed to do for my car. So I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. So I jacked up the back end of the car. I took the tires off, and the parking brake wasn't working. So I watched his video that he made on the parking brake, and I'll show you a little bit of what he showed me. This cable here goes up under there to the handbrake in the cockpit, and then it stretches back here and is attached to the spring, so that when you pull the brake, this of course should pull forward, and then when you release, the spring will pull it back and disengage your emergency brakes. Well, this little harness then goes to a cable that runs to both back brakes, and those will run your emergency brake. So when I got down here, one of these nuts was in front of this harness and one was behind the harness, and just like Tom showed in his video, mine was really loose, just like his. So I moved the top bolt all the way up the threads till it couldn't move any further, and then I pushed the back bolt up, but it still wasn't very tight. So I decided to take it all off, and then I put the little harness piece on first. I added these two things here, and I put both bolts behind. That way I can push it as far up as I want to. And now the second bolt will act like a locking bolt when it's put up tight against this bolt. So I think that's a pretty good setup. Anyway, this cable goes over the exhaust and then into here and into this tube. This tube is rigid. It's not a flexible tube. And what happened to Tom and many C3 Corvette owners is the cable, it gets it's seized inside this tube, and so it won't pull when it needs to pull. And of course there's two of them, one on each side. And so I did what he suggested, and I took this little cap off and I started spraying WD-40 in here to try to loosen things up. And when I got out here, I took the brake caliper off and hung it. You have to be very careful because these are not flexible brake lines. They're tubes, metal tubes. So if you collapse it by bending it or whatever, then no brake fluid would come out, and that would be rough if you tried to stop. At any rate, here's that non-flexible tube. Here's the cable coming out over here, and this of course butts up against here to protect it. And so I started shooting WD-40 down into there, and I started working it back and forth, trying to get it to where it would be free in the tube. And then comes this. Now this is disc brakes, and this caliper sits on here, and it's got little pads in there that push together on here. That's what stops you. And originally all these are riveted on with rivets here, and here, and then you have to drill them out in order to get this off. Well, mine were already drilled out, and it seems like a lot of people's videos I watch, they're already drilled out, but I could not get this to come off. I tried everything I could to try to get this off, and it wasn't working. So I I commented to Tom on his reverse lights video that I love watching his videos. Very informative. I find them very humorous. But I asked him about getting this off, and he said, "Well, you got to drill out those rivets." And so I said, "Well, those holes are empty, so somebody's already drilled out my rivets." And then he said, "Get a 2x4 and the biggest hammer you can find." So Spencer would hold a 2x4 up in these blank spots here, and then I would whack it with my sledgehammer, and a couple whacks, it broke free, so it's loose now. Sorry about this, but I just want to show you what's then happening on the inside. So you get that off, and your brakes sit. One shoe sits over here, and the other shoe sits over here. And these things are hard to get to, but you have to basically open your shoe up until you could barely see that, and then pull it out. This one on this side, the pin can actually come out of the back here, but this one on this side, it can't come out no matter what. So it's stuck in there unless you take off this little piece here, and I'm not gonna do that. But anyway, the cable that I was messing with before comes to here, and it works this little lever inside here. So when you pull your brake cable, this pulls forward, which pushes this little boot right here into your brake pad. Your brake pad goes out this way and pushes against the drum of this disc. And likewise, this also pushes the other shoe. It pushes that shoe out here. And so when you pull your brake, those expand against the inner part of this drum, and that's your emergency brake. So anywho, I opened this up, and there's a spring that connects the top of this brake to the top of this brake, and that spring was broken. So I went to, of course, Corvette Central and ordered a new spring set that has the top spring, the bottom spring. It also has the adjuster on the bottom of the brakes, and it has those little pins that I was showing you. Now one pin I can't replace. I'm not gonna replace, but I'll get the new pin in one of the spots, and it'll look good once I get it done. That'll be a while, so I have to wait for that spring set to come in. I don't know how long it takes to get here, a few days, but at any rate, that means I move on to the next thing. So I think the next thing is I'm gonna jack up the front, get underneath, and start trying to clean. I've already tried to clean under there. It is really filthy, and I'm trying to find those leaks. I think there's a rear seal leak in the engine that's leaking oil. But anyway, that's what's coming up next. Yeah, so yeah, you get an old car, you deal with this kind of stuff. All right, that's the update.